Adam, we heard TechCrunch was bought. We have this beautiful gong right here. Should we ring it or not?
I think this is like a Portnoy champagne bottle situation. It's time to
Okay.
ring it.
Okay.
Time to ring it.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll hit it. We'll hit it.
Thank you.
But great to see you, Adam. I just want to say you always thought that I would be good at podcasting and always believed in me. So, thank you for that. You were the first person to say
You have a face for
you should be
podcasting.
podcasting. So, but it's great. I gave a quick intro earlier, but it'd be great to have it in your words, and then I want to kind of get into the news.
Jordy, I think I sent you a contract
Oh,
once to become a podcast host, so
You definitely did.
we can talk about that. But yeah, it's big fan of the show, guys. It's been amazing, and I've never seen Jordy just in his natural element of getting to shoot the shit all day. It's a perfect job.
it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
It's designed here.
So work week is imagine if LinkedIn was only for people that were verifiably in your profession. So
Mhm.
think about if you're in ecom or run a hospital system or HR, you have a platform, social media platform that's built just for you. Conversations there are authentic around your lingo. You get a similar to what this podcast is all about. Actually, I think this is why
Yeah.
we all like it as founders, is you guys talk like us, you think like us, you bring that out, and we've built that in a social media platform. So that's largely what we do. I think one of the areas that we've focused on is like if I wanted to go launch an HR social media platform, I would never have a shot to do it.
Mhm.
HR people would not listen to me. And so our go to market is to partner with operators, practitioners in these industries and have them create newsletters and podcasts that then help us build an audience to drive to these memberships in the future. So that's most of what we're up to nowadays. And previously, as Jordy said, the hustle, MyFitnessPal, and Spiceworks kind of at various different points of media.
Cool.
Amazing. Let's jump right into TC. We've talked about this on the show before. They were owned by, what was it? AOL, Apollo. The private equity fund bought AOL. It seems like at some point there would be an incentive to sort of dismantle AOL, the underlying assets, and I imagine that Apollo doesn't want to just hold that position forever. Maybe just talk about kind of the history of maybe why you think TechCrunch has really just struggled. I think it was owned by Verizon
I'll give
at
you
some
some
point as
background.
well.
So, founded in 2005 by Michael Arrington, partners of Archimedes Ventures. Eventually, they went under the Yahoo umbrella after its former parent AOL and Yahoo were acquired by Verizon. So, it became a Verizon company. And then Verizon sold to Apollo. So, it's been private equity backed since 2021. And now it has been sold to Regent, a media investment firm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the property. It's like the hot potato that no one wants, right? It's
Mhm.
just been sold and sold and sold. But I mean, I think the through line is looking. If you look at their search interest on Google Trends, they peaked. Any guess what year they peaked of search interest?
2012.
2011. Good guess, Jordy.
2011. Wow.
2011 was the peak of their search history. Today, their search history is essentially the equivalent of what they had in June of 2006.
Wow.
Wow.
Uh, and it's just been a depreciating, distressed asset for 12 years, and that's why it keeps getting tossed around. And you know, I actually think they're an interesting one to study though, because like, why were they so good? And they were so good because they figured out one move that was just awesome, which
Yep.
was building relationships with VCs in Silicon Valley, breaking the news, having mom be proud, creating the cycle,
Yep.
keep going,
The
and
Mom
that's
Be
what it
Proud
became.
engine.
It
Yeah,
really
I
is
mean,
true. When you start a company, it's so fake for so long. Even if you go to your parents and you say, "Hey, I got $2 million from Andreessen Horowitz," they're like, "Who? That's not
yeah.
Bank of America.
And at
That's
some
not
point,
Chase."
at
And
some
so
point,
you get the TechCrunch article and you can send it to your family and be like, "Hey, I'm in business. I'm a real
yeah,
person."
at some point, I had one funny TechCrunch story. So we announced our seed round from Andreessen, and we
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously launched our pre-seed. It was this awesome moment. We had been in the timeline a lot, and TechCrunch agreed to cover the story. They didn't tell us when they would release it. They didn't even tell us they were for sure going to cover it until like a couple days before. And then when they did release it, they refused to use our product imagery or any assets that we created, and they used a stock image of a birthday cake. And we were just like, hey, like, we're really excited about the article and like we want to share it broadly, but like this is not on, not on brand for us and like feels kind of random. And they like fired back and they were like, you're not a writer here, like don't. And it was like very hostile, and it left this like terrible taste in my mouth. And I was like, okay, I'm never talking to TechCrunch again. And I think a lot of founders have had that sort of frustration where it's like, hey, we still love the TechCrunch brand, because like for me, I grew up reading it. I remember just as a kid going to the homepage and being so excited. And I think it has like a ton of potential as being a place to inspire entrepreneurship. But the fall off is potentially that, and this is like the entire work week thesis, is that business people, whether you're an investor, founder, et cetera, want to like learn from other business people. And so at some point along the road, after Michael Arrington, I think, was out of the picture, and it was private equity owned, they maybe stopped hiring sort of founders or people that just deeply loved, venture. And it sort of coincided with this explosion of just like, content creators broadly within venture capital that, Packy would start breaking, fundraising news. And you knew if you work with Packy, he was going to, publish it on the day that he said he was going to make you look good.
And actually deep dive it in a much deeper level than you would ever see on TechCrunch.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece of that, like two things I think they really screwed up. Like one, when you build your actual best product, which was their like fundraising breaking news, around the relationships with the investors, you can't write anything that's actually like deeply critical, even in the future. And what they did was they got stuck in middleman land of like, you can have like the Axios, Sarah Fishers of the world, Packies that are like, hey, I'm here to like tell a good story, a real story, but like to support you. Or like hard-hitting journalism, like I'm gonna like go say the thing that no one wants to say aloud. They like
Wall Street
live
Journal,
square in the
John
middle.
Carreyrou, like he broke Theranos. Like he's a serious investigative journalist in the business world. If
They try to do
around,
both, and
rough,
you just can't win in the middle. Like, and I think with today, like either your editorial and your audience, like it can't be rounded anymore. It has to be pointed. And like you have to be like, this is what we stand for, this is what we do, this is who we support. If you're like anywhere in the middle, you're just gonna get forgotten. And I think they lost that like 10 plus years ago.
Yeah. I mean, looking at their X account, they have 10 million followers on X, and their
50 likes.
19 likes on their announcement that they have been sold, which is like big news in their own world. And it's just so rough.
Yeah. It's interesting. We had heard months ago that it was for sale and was trying to find a buyer. And I do think the actual purchase price came in a lot lower than what they had hoped. But what I can imagine happens now is whoever this guy, I don't know the guy who bought it, but I imagine he basically fires everyone, because I can't imagine that
he's not going to. So Regents is a private equity firm that owns a bunch of logos that 15 years ago were cool. And his playbook is, and TechCrunch put this in their own press release. I think their cheesy ass line was like, this is a software update, not a system restart. But he said he's not firing anyone, but he owns a bunch of different logos and publications that are typically distressed assets. And I kind of see it as like they're hoping his playbook is like, I own 50 of these. If I can make a few of them a little bit better, flip them in 5 years. And so I don't think they're actually going to probably fire a ton of people. Unfortunately, I think it's actually going to continue the path of not being relevant or good, because they're going to not lose money. And I think they need a whole restart to do that.
Let me give a little overview of who they own at Regent. Computer World, Network World, CIO Magazine, CSO Magazine, Macworld, PC World, IT World, Rate My Professors, Cheddar News, Military Times, Defense News, Marine Times, Army Times, Navy Times, Air Force Times. So a lot of like these hyper verticalized small trade publications they've put together. And then they own some stuff in fashion as well, and then industrial and consumer products as well. And it says that they were in Supercuts for a while, and then they exited.
Yeah, nice. I saw that too. That was a fun. I was like, actually, I'd like to hear that story. But I mean, I think, when was the last time you heard a founder now say like, I can't wait for TechCrunch to like break my story? And I think that's like
Yeah,
the core of
Well, it's a
what's going
sad
on.
thing
And
because
fair.
yeah,
founders would still want them to break the story, but it's hard to get them to respond, even if you have something that's somewhat newsworthy. What else is going on in media today that you find interesting? I know you wrote earlier this week about the Skims, which was like a hustle era, super hot, newsletter that sold. How did that go? Is there any takeaways from it?
yeah, they were started 2014. Oprah said she loved it. Reese Witherspoon, Chelsea Handler kind of like went on this, raised like 25 million from 21st Century Fox, bunch of good companies. Also hit their search interest peak in 2016. So
Mm.
I think with them, they had a great business. They were probably 7 years too late. I think that's a founders not selling at the right time, than like being bad builders and their time had passed. But I don't think they crossed the prep stack. 12 plus years down the drain for them, and pretty sad considering one time they were a household name among like millennial women for a few short years. But yeah, that happened this week, and I think that's what we're seeing. It's like it's the onslaught of like, if you're not loved, you're out. And none of these people that are getting sold today like have people that are truly like logging in every day and loving what they're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, last question, then we'll let you go. What do you think the founders of the Skim should have done differently? Is there a path where this could have been a great cash flow engine if they'd not raised and kind of run it more as just making them influencers? Could they have been the next, Call Her Daddy or something if they'd played that differently? What do you think?
I do think they were more of a faceless institution than they probably got credit for, which is
Sure.
kind of against my belief of what you have to be today. I think you have to have individuals at the forefront.
Yep.
But also, my interesting analysis there from 2014, their press release was like, our advantage is that we're low tech.
Mm.
In 2018, when they announced their Series B, they said, at the heart of what we do is technology.
Yeah.
And I think there's like, it's okay today to just admit who you are
Sure.
and what you do. And they tried to be something they're not, which is a technology company. I think they wasted tons of capital trying to do shit that they have no idea how to do. And they should have just kept with building content for women their age and creating for themselves, and they would have been just fine.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Did you follow anything? Last question on my side for now, and would love to just have you back on when there's media, headlines. Did you follow? So, Call Her Daddy, like, had all this big issues with Barstool because they just weren't really getting a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Cooper eventually leaves, starts her own network, does very well, but then creates this sort of new superstar in Alex Earl, and then Alex Earl like announced this quarter that she's leaving. Do you think it's possible to build networks anymore long term, with these sort of like scaled networks, do you eventually just lose your best talent? How does that work?
I think it depends. I mean, the Alex Earl one's interesting. I was confused because she was already a superstar. I mean, she was already making like a few million a year, pre Alex Cooper. I think, what the best networks do, I think, is find emerging talent, like in pre-seed stage, essentially as like a content creator, and to keep them. And I think there's been plenty of good examples. I mean, everyone talks about Barstool leaving, but like Big Cat, PFT, and all those guys are still there,
Yeah.
and drive most of their revenue actually, and always have. And so what happened? How'd they do that? They get paid a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel like they're treated fair. And I think that's like at the core. Not everyone wants to do everything, and I think when you're building out those networks, the only way to keep talent is, I think, to talk to the talent and be like, what kind of life do you want? What kind of pay do you want? And you've got to build for that. And I think, if you look at TV, this is what people should take away, is like Stephen A. Smith just got a fucking whopper of a deal. They kept him, but they like knew what he needed. He wanted to he wanted to get the highest contract. TV's done this really well for a long time. Friends cast, giving them their new contracts to keep them together. Those are all innovative contracts to keep talent. I think to sustain, you have to kind of take that same approach.
That makes a ton of sense. Well, thanks for stopping by. We'll talk
Thanks,
to you
guys.
soon.
You, Adam.
See you later.
Talk
Talk to you
soon.
soon. Bye.